Priyavrata Gopijana Vallabha Priyavrata Jasudanana Vajajaranjana Jasudanana Vajajaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, devotees, Prabhus. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 1st chapter, verse number 20. And also, we're going to read about the disappearance of Sripad Ishwarapuri, the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Prayeshavadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Vavati Naistiki. So, where are we? Okay, here we are. And let's see the verse. Shri Shuka Uvacha Iti Samabhihitu Maha Bhagavatu Bhagavatastri Bhuvana Guru Ranuscha Sanamatmano Laguta Yavanata Shirodaru Adhamiti Sabahumanam Uvaha. Shri Shuka Uvacha, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Iti, thus, Samabhihita, completely instructed, Maha Bhagavata, the great devotee, Bhagavata of the most powerful Lord Brahma, Tribhuvana, of the three worlds, Guru, the spiritual master, Anushasanam, the order, Atmana, of himself, Lagutaya, because of inferiority, Avanata, bow down, Shirodhara, his head, Badham, yes sir, Iti, thus, Sabahumanam, with great respect, Uvaha, carried out. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the three worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Purport. Sri Priyavrata was the grandson of Lord Brahma. Therefore, according to social etiquette, his position was inferior. It is the duty of the inferior, I have trouble pronouncing this word, to carry out the order of the superior with great respect. Priyavrata therefore immediately said, yes, sir, I shall carry out your order. Priyavrata is described as a Mahabhagavat, a great devotee. The duty of a great devotee is to carry out the order of a spiritual master, or the spiritual master of the spiritual master in the parampara system. As described in Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam parampara praptam, one has to receive the instructions of the Supreme Lord through the disciplic chain of spiritual masters. A devotee of the Lord always considers himself a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. The verse again. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the three worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham Gam Karoti Vachanam Pangum Nangayati Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram Vanchakalpataruyascha Kripa Sindhuvyeva Chapatitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. In order to somehow understand this, I think it will be pertinent to go to the two previous verses. And if the internet cooperates, we will be able to do that. Well, it's one of those slow mornings back at the ranch. All right. There we go. In verse 18, Prabhupada translates, one who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and 5 sense organs is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. After one has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have decreased, he can move anywhere without danger. And the first line of a purport, Prabhupada said, the Vedic system of 4 varnas and 4 ashram is very scientific, and its entire purpose is to enable one to control the senses, which is quite interesting. It's not just so you feel happy because you're a Vaishya, you can do business, or because you love to work. And you can work because you're a Shudra, or because you can smash people because you're a Kshatriya, is actually to control your senses. Very interesting. And the senses are powerful enemies, as Prabhupada suggests. So the king in a strong fortress can conquer powerful enemies. So again, in the purport, Prabhupada says a householder in Grihastha ashram, household life, can conquer the lusty desires of youth, be very secure when he takes vanaprastha and sannyas. And the next verse, 19. Lord Brahma continued, my dear Priyavrata, seek shelter inside the opening of the lotus of the feet of the Lord, whose navel is also like a lotus. Thus conquer the 6 sense organs, the mind and knowledge acquiring senses, accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do this. You will thus always be liberated from material association and be able to carry out the Lord's orders in your constitutional position. So this is quite remarkable, because it says, accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do this. So this is obviously not common. This is something that everybody looks after in the material world to gratify the senses. And one is advised not to do it. This is the first duty of any varna, any ashram, any civilized human being. There are 400,000 species of humans. No, wait a second. Yeah, no. There are 8,400,000 species, and 400,000 are human and subhuman. So very rare among the human species of someone to actually make the sacrifice to control the senses. But it becomes actually their mission. And this is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur declares as a hero. A hero is not someone who conquers cities or countries or the world. It's someone who controls oneself. The senses need to be under control in order to actually be peaceful. And if one is not peaceful, all hope for happiness is gone. There is no happiness by entering a rave where there is no peace. There is no happiness. These are simply electrical sparks. You don't. It's like getting electricity in India. You get it and it goes off, and then comes back, and then goes off. So the happiness that one gets out of the mode of passion, even out of the mode of goodness, it is just a sprinkle or little stars. And this is not the sun. So in order to actually be peaceful and protected, one has to control the senses. And Prabhupada shows, and the Bhagavatam shows, that there is a hierarchy, that the Lord Brahma, because being the spiritual master of the 3 worlds, and needs to be respected by the others, which are inferior. So there is no deterrent to being inferior. Matter of fact, we are, as Prabhupada ends the purport, servants of the servants of the servants of Krishna. We are not very highly situated in the totem pole of hierarchy. We are actually very low, but there is nothing taken away from being a servant of a servant of a servant. It's not like the servant of Krishna enjoys more than the servant of a servant of Krishna, or the servant of a servant of a servant. It actually is shared equally or even higher, because what we consider some of the incentives or the perks of being in the material world as a controller and as a rich person, as a powerful person, as a famous person, this actually in the spiritual world are not looked upon as desirable at all. Krishna is famous. Krishna is powerful. Krishna is attractive. Krishna is the controller. Nobody has any interest. And if there is any conquering, is by love. The only desire of the inhabitants of the spiritual world is to please Krishna. And the only desire of the inhabitants of the material world is to please themselves. Quite a difference. It appears subtle, but it keeps us in this world of darkness. As tamas, this is ignorance and darkness. This is what this world is, a scary place. I don't intentionally look for things to see the degradation of society, but if I go to some site anywhere, or go to Google or go to YouTube, I see it's constantly people being shot, people being killed. It's just this world is, there's wars, there is an earthquake in Turkey and Syria that kill over 20,000 people. This is a scary place, and it gets dark and you can't see anything. So just like if you enter a dark room, you're in anxiety because you can't see what's in there. So this is a dark world. We don't know how things are going to happen and what is going to happen. So the only solution to achieve peace and protection is to control one's senses and worship the senses of Rishikesh, the master of the senses. Today is a special day, as pointed out by Taraka Prabhu, that is the disappearance of Sri Ishvara Puri, and I have a little bit to read from his biography. I would also like to refer to the verse that Prabhupada quoted in the purport from the Bhagavad Gita, Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Rajar Sayo Vidu Sakalineha Mahata Yugunashta Parantapa. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of the cyclic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. And the purport Prabhupada said that this was meant especially for saintly kings, because they needed to execute it to rule over the citizens. It was never meant for demonic persons, and people can interpret things. So this is the science that was actually, it gets lost because everything in the material world turns to degrade and eventually vanish, and they have to be reestablished, exactly like the places, the holy places, the holiest of holy places in Vrindavan, India, that were lost, and Lord Chaitanya induced his followers, the six Goswamis, to excavate and rediscover the beauty and the significance, the deep significance of holy places. And the holy places are not just for there to take pictures, to take selfies of you, and Radhakunda in the background. It's meant to not just to bathe in a river like a cow or an ass. It's meant to be a place where one can associate with saintly people and hear about the extraordinary pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Gitanagari is in the same thing. It's not like you come here to practice yoga or to get away from the mundane world. It's actually you come for Sangha. You should come for Sangha. This is the purpose of a holy place, to gather saintly people and to be able to associate with them. All right, let's get into Ishvara Puri's bio, shall we? If you have any comments or questions about the verse from the Bhagavatam, we can talk about it after the biography, if you think it's okay. So, Ishvara Puripad. Ishvarapuri was born in the town of Kumarhata on the full moon day of the month of Jyeshta to a family of Brahmins hailing from Radha. Kumarhata is in the 24 Paraganas district, about 2 miles from Harisahar train station. The town is also important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas because Srivas Pandit and his brothers moved here after Mahaprabhu took sannyas because they were unable to tolerate all the painful reminders of him in Navadvip. Their house is not far from a place in the Mukhopadhyaya Para neighborhood where Ishvarapuri was born. Ishvarapuri's birthplace is popularly known by the name Chaitanya Dhoba. The word Dhoba means a pool of water. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed through Kumarhata on his way to Puri, he showed respect for his spiritual master by picking up some earth from a place of his birth, wrapping it in his cloth, and taking it with him. Thousands of pilgrims have since followed his example, thus forming a pit that has since filled with water. Ishvarapuri is a sannyas name. Though his name prior to taking sannyas is unknown, we do know that his father's name was Shyamasundara. Ishvarapuri took initiation from Madhavendra Puri, the embodiment of nectarian devotional love. Madhavendra Puri was pleased with Ishvarapuri's guileless, sincere, and affectionate service, and thus showered him with blessings, so that he too became immersed in the ocean of love for Krishna. If a disciple can satisfy his spiritual master, then he will be fortunate and attain all auspiciousness and the fulfillment of all his desires. On the other hand, if a guru is unhappy with the disciple, then he will only know inauspiciousness. These teachings have been highlighted in the exemplary life of Madhavendra Puri. Oh my goodness, we got a pirate in the midst. Hare Krishna. Ramachandra Puri was another of Madhavendra Puri's initiated disciples, but because of his arrogance, he was bereft of his guru's grace. Krishnadas Kaviraj has described the incident with great beauty in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as follows. Previously, when Madhavendra Puri was on his deathbed, Ramachandra Puri came to see him. Madhavendra Puri was singing the names of the Lord and crying out, "I have not attained Mathura." Ramachandra then began to instruct him. He had no compunction about doing so, even though he was a disciple. He said, "Remember that you are completely full of the bliss of Brahman. Why are you crying like this despite being knowledgeable of your own Brahma nature?" When Madhavendra Puri heard this, he became angry and began to rebuke Ramachandra, saying, get away, you most sinful rascal. I am dying from the distress of not having received Krishna's mercy, of not having attained Mathura, and you have come to add to my misery. Go wherever you like, but don't show your face to me again. If I see you while I am dying, I will take a lower birth. I am dying from the distress of not having attained Krishna, and this lowly fool is teaching me about Brahman. As a result, Madhavendra Puri withdrew his blessings from his disciple, who thenceforth started to develop material desires. He became a dry philosopher without any interest in Krishna. Not only that, but he became critical of everyone and devoted himself to fault finding. Ishvara Puri, on the other hand, served his guru, even personally cleaning his urine and feces. He continuously repeated the name of Krishna and recounted Krishna's pastimes to him. Madhavendra Puri was so pleased with Ishvara Puri that he embraced him and blessed him, saying, "May you have the treasure of love for Krishna." From that time onward, Ishvara Puri became an ocean of love for Krishna, while Ramachandra Puri became a mine of insults. These two personalities thus bear witness to the results of pleasing or displeasing a great soul. Madhavendra Puri taught this truth through them. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada has written in his Anubhashya, even though Ramachandra Puri saw his own guru suffering of separation from Krishna, he was incapable of recognizing the transcendental nature of his transport of emotions. He judged his guru to be an ordinary man and took his mood to be mundane, the result some material insufficiency. As a result, he tried to explain to him the value of experiencing the oneness of Brahman. Madhavendra Puri reacted to his disciples' stupidity and disregarded his instructions, and thus stopped wishing for his welfare. He abandoned him and drove him away. Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and has no need of any teacher. Even so, he wishes to teach the world that it is absolutely necessary to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. For this reason, he played the role of a disciple by taking initiation from Ishvara Puri when he met him at Gaya. This in itself shows beyond a doubt, Ishvara Puri's greatness and importance. Then the Lord went to Gaya, where he met Ishvara Puri. After taking initiation from him, he started to display the signs of love of God. And when he returned to his homeland, he began to engage in the pastimes of divine love. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. When they met, Mahaprabhu and Ishvara Puri were overcome by the ecstasy of love and drenched each other in tears of prema that fell from their eyes. The Lord said, "My pilgrimage to Gaya is successful, for today I have seen your lotus feet." When one makes the pinda, which is the offering to the ancestors at the holy place, then that ancestor is delivered. But simply by seeing you, 10 million ancestors are delivered from all forms of bondage in a single moment. Therefore, no holy place is your equal, and you are the primary source of auspiciousness for even the holy places. Please lift me up from the ocean of material suffering. I offer this body up to your service. The only gift I ask of you is that you give me the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet to drink. Mahaprabhu was acting the role of an ordinary mortal, a pilgrim who had come to Gaya to offer the Shraddha oblations for his deceased father. On the day that he performed these rituals, he returned to his room and began to cook. When Ishvara Puri came and placed his holy feet in Mahaprabhu's room, Mahaprabhu personally served him the rice and vegetables that he himself had cooked with great satisfaction. In so doing, Mahaprabhu demonstrated most perfectly how to serve the Guru. Ishvara Puri had met Mahaprabhu in Navadvip even prior to giving him the 10-syllable mantra in Gaya. He also met with Advaitacharya, who had similarly played the role of Madhavendra Puri's disciple. Vrindavan Das Thakur has described this meeting in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Once, Ishvara Puri passed through Navadvip when Nimai was still engaged in his pastimes as a student. He stayed there for a few months in the house of Gopinathacharya as his guest. One day, he saw Nimai and was most impressed and attracted by his bodily beauty. Nimai invited Ishvara Puri to his house to eat and had his mother Sachi cook and serve him Krishna Prasad. Then he and Ishvara Puri began talking about Krishna. Ishvara Puri also met Gadadhar Pandit and was pleased when he saw the depth of his renunciation. He started to affectionately give him lessons from Shri Krishna Lilamrita, a book of his own composition. Nimai would also come daily to Gopinathacharya's house to visit Ishvara Puri while he was teaching Gadadhar and offer him his obeisances. One day, Ishvara Puripad asked Nimai to correct any mistakes that were in his book. Then Nimai answered, "Anyone who finds any fault with a devotee's description of Krishna is a sinner. If a devotee writes a poem, no matter how poorly he does it, it will certainly contain his love for Krishna." A fool says Vishnaya, while a scholar knows the correct form is Vishnave. But Krishna accepts the sentiment in either case. If anyone sees a fault in this, the fault is his, for Krishna is pleased with anything the pure devotee says. You too describe the Lord with words of love, so what arrogant person would dare criticize anything that you have written? That's from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. The same incident is described in the Bhakti Ratnakara in the following way. Look here, this is the house of Gopinathacharya, where Vishvambar will visit from time to time. Ishvara Puri stayed here for a while and composed his book, Shri Krishna Lilamrita. He had great affection for Gadadhar Pandit, and when he saw the symptoms of love for Krishna in him, he taught him that book. When Nityananda Prabhu was traveling in the west of India, he incidentally met Madhavendra Puri there. When the two met, they fainted. Nityananda was overcome by love and started to describe Madhavendra Puri's glories, while Madhavendra Puri himself embraced Nityananda and wet him with his tears. Ishvara Puripad understood that Nityananda was extremely dear to his spiritual master, and so, like his guru's other disciples, held him in great affection and felt a deep love for him. All glories to Madhava Puri, the ocean of love for Krishna. He was the first shoot of the desired tree of devotion. That first shoot was nourished and grew in the form of Ishvara Puri, and from him the thick trunk of Chaitanya Lila took shape. That's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Before he left this world, Ishvara Puri sent two of his disciples, Kashishvara and Govinda, to serve Mahaprabhu. Even though they were his god brothers, Mahaprabhu still obeyed the order of his spiritual master and accepted them as his servants. That's the biography of Shripad Ishvara Puri. One interesting thing that I noticed in the purport of the verse that we read today about Maharaj Priyavrata is that Prabhupada says, the duty of a great devotee is to carry out the order of a spiritual master or the spiritual master of the spiritual master in the parampara system, which meant to indicate that whomever one's spiritual master is, and there will be many generations following ours with other spiritual masters, the principal spiritual master, the acharya for this movement is Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada was a missionary. He came to establish Krishna consciousness all over the world. So ultimately, even if the future or the present spiritual masters have other ideas and they have to superimpose them over the principal command, which is to Yaradeko Tarekaho Krishna Upadesh, that wherever one goes, whomever one sees, one has to teach them about Krishna consciousness. That's the primary duty of the devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. And of course, in order to be effective, one has to control one's senses and following the prescribed norms of Vaishnava behavior and chant one's rounds, etc., etc. So at this point, here's before we get to Taraka Prabhu, there's a quote from Taraka Prabhu, quoting the Bhagavad Gita. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how could there be any happiness without peace? Yes, I was paraphrasing. Thank you. So, Targa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a wonderful reading. I have a question, which is, what is the volume that you were reading from?
This is called Sri Chaitanya, His Life and Associates by Swami B.B. Tirtha, published by Mandala Press. This is part of the Gaudiya tradition. I believe he's a disciple of Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj. Yes, he is. And there is basically, I don't know how many, but tons and tons of biographies. Kaliya Krishna Das, Saranga Thakur, Vasudeva Datta, Lochan Das, Janavi Devi, and there is also an abbreviated biography of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and some of the acharyas of the Gaudiya Math and Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada. And I've been using it for quite a while, and I find it quite harmless as far as there is no visible enmity or disagreement with the Siddhanta and the Tattva.
Seems wonderful. I want a copy.
Actually, somebody asked me for a copy. I think it was Prima Kishori, and she got a, I think it was Prima Kishori, and she got a copy. She got a soft-bound. I don't think I have these big hardbound copy anymore, but I'll inquire for you. I'll be happy to.
Oh, thank you.
Fine, sure.
I have another question.
Where I got my glasses?
Oh,
No, just kidding.
So verse 20. Priyavrata Maharaj is not yet Maharaj, but he's surrendering himself to the will of Lord Brahma, who is his grandfather, and and also Param Guru. And the narration brings to mind the story of Lord Brahma's creation and his instructions to the Kumaras who were generated from his body. So they're the generation prior to Priyavrata. And he instructs them to produce progeny, to generate progeny. They refuse. Let's that quickly here. Srila Prabhupada addresses the question of why they would do such a thing. In text, this is the third canto chapter. So text 4 says, in the beginning, Brahma created 4 sages named Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumar. All of them were unwilling to adopt materialistic activities because they were highly elevated due to their semens flowing upwards. And so next verse, Brahma is instructing them to produce progeny, and they express their unwillingness. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the 4 sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, declined to become family men, even on the request of their great father Brahma. Those who are serious about gaining release from material bondage should not be entangled in the false relationship of family bondage. People may ask how the Kumaras could refuse the orders of Brahma, who was their father, and above all, the creator of the universe. The reply is that one who is Vasudeva Parayana, or seriously engaged in the devotional service of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva, need not care for any other obligation. And then Srila Prabhupada quotes the 11th canto, 5th chapter, text 41. Anyone who has completely given up all worldly relationships and has taken absolute shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, who gives us salvation and who alone is fit to be taken shelter of, is no longer a debtor or servant of anyone else, including the demigods, forefathers, sages, other living entities, relatives, or human society in general. Thus, there was nothing wrong in the acts of the Kumars when they refuse their great father's request that they become family men. So my question here now is that because in this, the Kumaras became this, I believe, I'm a little foggy right now, but I believe the Kumaras became disciples of Narada Muni. Is that correct? And Lord, and so, but Lord Brahma is superior even to Narada, and so the relationship with the spiritual master is eternal, and the instruction of the spiritual master, of course, cannot be neglected. But in this case, Srila Prabhupada is indicating that on basis of their advanced Krishna consciousness, the Kumaras had no obligation to anyone, evidently, not even to their spiritual master, which is a little confounding. That's my question. I don't know whether you can shed any light on this, but so we're reading that Priyavrata, in his instance, he chose to submit to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma explains that this is the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not just his own will, but that he himself is reflecting the will of Krishna. But in the Lord Brahma's instruction to the Kumaras was really no different. It was also on the order of Krishna that he was attempting to populate the universe, and he was asking the Kumaras to generate progeny. But in their case, they refused the order, and that was okay. So I'm trying to understand clearly and definitively what is the obligation to the spiritual master. That story has always surprised me, that if the relationship with the spiritual master is eternal, then how is it Srila Prabhupada's his explanation is simply that on the basis of their advancement, they have no further obligation to anyone. But I don't know, I'm confused. I was thinking that the exception to that is that the order of the spiritual master can never be neglected, but I guess my understanding is just not correct. Anyway, if you can shed any light on that issue, that would be great.
Well, it may be the light of a single match, not the floodlight that you may expect. But I have an opinion, and I may be wrong. But it seems like there's some clues. One is actually in the purport, what I just read, that if one doesn't obey the order of a spiritual master, it may obey the order of a spiritual master of their spiritual master. And in this case, Lord Krishna had a particular idea about the Kumaras, that play a pastime. He was in the mood for fighting, and he didn't want to come to earth and meet some greasy Mongolian or Iranian fighters. He just wanted to bring his own associates disguised as fighters. So he needed Jai and Vijay to be cursed, and the Kumaras played a significant role in this lila. So, and also that supersedes the order of a spiritual master, well, in this case, Lord Brahma, it was superseded by the order of Krishna, who is Lord Brahma's spiritual master. So there is not a break in the disciplic succession or in the parampara system that one disobeys the order of spiritual master. And apparently, Priyavrata, by nature was more obedient than the Kumaras, and he didn't mind as long as it's just like the story of Sukadeva Goswami, who refused to come out of the womb of his mother, and even his father, an incarnation, Vyasadeva, an incarnation of Krishna, told him to come out. He wouldn't, and he basically, he had the authority to be his guru, Vyasadeva, but Sukadeva Goswami wanted something higher, and Krishna had to come himself and tell him, you're not going to be touched by Maya, so you don't have to worry about it. You can come out anytime you want. So it seems like sometimes it's not like stepping over and ignoring the order of a spiritual master, but it's still connected. Just like if they say, if one is his own spiritual master, one has a fool for a disciple. So this is not like the Kumaras wanted to be their own gurus, but they had such spiritual prowess that they thought, this is going to slow me down. This is going to actually impede our spiritual advancement. So therefore, this order should be somewhat put aside for a higher purpose. If someone with a renounced nature is asked to become a cook for the devotees in a temple, and that person is fine just eating, unspiced, unsalted khichdi, he can't just make the same dish for everybody else. He has to adapt to this circumstance. So it seems like to be able to adapt, one requires to go outside of one's own nature. And Priyavrata didn't mind, and the Kumaras did mind. But in that case, I think Krishna had a different plan and different. He wanted Jai and Vijay to be cursed, so he could take him with him to the material world. Because usually, I can imagine that it will be very hard for any of the inhabitants of a spiritual world, particularly close associates of Krishna, to be convinced to go to the material world for whatever reason. It will be difficult. So there has to be some kind of theatrical performance in order for that to be implemented. And I think is all connected. Okay, anyway, that's my 2 cents, Prabhu. I don't have much else.
Thank you.
And you also quoted another verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Naham vipro na cha narapatir napi vaisho na sudro naham varni nacha griha patir no vanastu yatirva kintu prodyan nikila paramanand punamritabter gopivartu padakamalayor dasa dasanudas. I'm not a Brahman, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya or a Shudra, nor am I a brahmacharya, householder, a vanaprastha, or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as a servant of a servant of a servant of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. What a nice verse. Gopi Bhartu Pada Kamalayor Das Das Anudas. We should imprint it. We have a tattoo, backwards tattoo on our forehead, so we can look at the mirror and see it, be able to read it. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Happy Ishvara Puri Padas Disappearance Day. And I hope you'll have a Krishna Conscious Day as well. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.